I stare at my phone screen, reading the message again, as if the words might somehow rearrange themselves into something less painful. They don't. This year, it's just Sarah's family, hope you understand. The crisp November sunlight filters through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my Boston condo, glinting off the crystal vase I splurged on last week. Outside, sailboats scatter across the harbor, their white sails sharp against the dark blue water. Everything in this space I've built whispers of success: the minimalist furniture in soft whites and grays, the original artwork, the pristine surfaces untouched by clutter. Nothing, however, betrays the hollow ache slowly spreading through my chest. My thumb hovers above the screen. A dozen possible replies form and dissolve in my mind: questions, accusations, pleas. In the end, I type just one word: enjoy. I set the phone gently on the marble countertop and press my palms flat against its cool surface. The reflection staring back from the polished granite is that of a woman, composed, accomplished, unshaken. Only the faint tremor in my hands gives me away. Just yesterday, I was standing in Williams-Sonoma picking out personalized stockings for my nieces and nephews, a cashmere throw for Grandma Margaret, a special bottle of scotch for Uncle Robert, even a hand-carved cheese board for Aunt Carol and Uncle Frank, my parents, despite our strained relationship. Grandma Margaret had called last week, her voice warm and full of affection. "You're still coming for Thanksgiving at your parents', right? I can't wait to see you, sweetheart." "Wouldn't miss it," I'd told her, smiling as I stirred the cranberry chutney I'd been perfecting from her recipe. 3 test batches later, it was finally right, tart yet sweet, with just enough spice. Perfect for the family table. The phone rings, jolting me back to the present. Cousin David's name flashes on the screen. "Brianna, have you heard?" His voice carries the same stunned disbelief knotting in my stomach. "About Thanksgiving? Just got the text." "It's not just you," David says tightly. "They've cut out almost everyone except Sarah's crew. 18 people, Brie. 18 family members suddenly uninvited." My fingers tighten around the phone. What? Why would they, Aunt Carol and Uncle Frank, only want Sarah's perfect family at their perfect table? David spits out. "God forbid they include the rest of us commoners." I close my eyes. This isn't just about this year, it's about a lifetime of being second choice, the afterthought. Practical Christmas gifts while Sarah's were extravagant. Parent-teacher conferences my parents were too busy to attend, yet they'd rearrange everything for Sarah's volleyball games. The pattern is so familiar that I stopped feeling its sting years ago. "You there?" David asks. "Yeah, just processing. We're thinking about getting together at Grandma's instead, but her place is too small for everyone." I move to the window, watching the late autumn light shimmer across the water. For a moment, I see myself as others might: successful, independent, untouched by family drama. The wounded girl inside me wants to retreat, to lick her wounds in private and pretend none of this matters. But as I stand there, something shifts. The sunlight flares off the harbor's surface, momentarily blinding me with its brilliance. When my vision clears, the reflection staring back shows something new: a straightening of my shoulders, the lift of my chin. The hurt is still there, but beside it, something stronger begins to grow. I reach for my phone again, scrolling through contacts until I find the number I need. "Chef Michael, it's Brianna Campbell." I pause, my voice firming with each word. "I'd like to host Thanksgiving dinner for 32 people at my New Hampshire estate." There's a note of surprise in his voice when he replies, but also respect. "That's quite an undertaking on short notice, Miss Campbell." I'm aware. My gaze drifts to the text message still glowing on my screen. "But I think it's time for a new tradition, one where everyone has a place." As I hang up, a strange calm settles over me. They've made their choice, cutting me from their table without a second thought. Now I'm making mine, and I have a feeling they'll regret theirs sooner than they expect. Later that day, the Boston skyline gleams against the darkening November sky as I unlock the climate-controlled storage unit. Inside waits a decade of memories I've kept at arm's length, preserved, but untouched, like artifacts from another life. I pull the string on the overhead light. The fluorescent bulb flickers twice before steadying, casting sharp shadows across the rows of boxes labeled in my neat handwriting: high school, college, family photos. My fingers hover over the last box. Part of me wants to turn back to go home to pretend that text never existed. But another part, the same one that called Chef Michael, pushes me forward. The cardboard flaps open with a soft whisper of dust. The first album lies on top, its leather cover cracked with age. I settle onto the concrete floor, crossing my legs like I did as a child, and begin turning pages. Every photo tells the same story. Sarah centered in the frame, beaming. My parents positioned protectively around her, and me always slightly offset, as if the photographer couldn't quite fit me properly into the family portrait. In some, I'm partially cropped out, my shoulder or part of my face missing from the shot. "You moved right when I clicked," my mother would always explain when I'd point it out. After a while, I stopped mentioning it. I turned to the Christmas Morning series from 1995. Sarah unwrapping the deluxe art set she'd been coveting, her face illuminated with joy. 2 pages later, a single photo of me holding up a practical winter coat, my smile tight and practiced. I remember that morning with perfect clarity, how I'd hoped for the telescope I'd circled in catalogs for months, how I'd pretended the disappointment didn't cut. Deeper in the box, I find my MIT acceptance letter still in its original envelope. The paper is crumpled, smoothed flat again afterward. The memory rushes back, running into the kitchen, letter clutched in my hand, interrupting my father's morning coffee. "I got in," I'd announced, unable to contain my excitement. "Full admission to MIT's computer science program." My father had glanced up, then returned to his newspaper. "Computer science? What kind of real career is that for a girl?" My mother had squeezed my shoulder. "We just worry about you, honey. Sarah's teaching degree will always be practical." I traced my finger over the MIT emblem, remembering how I'd folded the letter back into its envelope that morning, tucked it into my pocket, and walked to the park alone to cry where they couldn't see. Next comes a stack of pay stubs from the 3 jobs I worked through: college mornings in the campus cafeteria, afternoons at the library, and freelance coding deep into the night. My parents had refused to help with tuition, insisting they couldn't afford it. Yet 6 months later, they refinanced their house to pay for Sarah's lavish wedding. I found out when my father casually mentioned the new mortgage payment during one of our rare Sunday dinner calls. "Worth every penny," he'd said proudly. "Every father dreams of giving his daughter her perfect day." I was their daughter too. The thought still burns even now. A wrinkled bank loan application surfaces from between faded notebooks, my desperate sophomore year attempt to secure funding when scholarship money ran short. The loan officer had looked genuinely regretful. "Without a co-signer with stronger credit, I just can't approve this amount." When I'd asked my parents, my mother had clicked her tongue in disapproval. "Borrowing money is irresponsible, Brianna. Maybe you should take a semester off. Work more hours." I never took a semester off. I just worked until exhaustion became my normal state. My phone buzzes with an incoming call. Grandma Margaret's name lights up the screen. "I just heard," she says, as soon as I answer, her voice tight with anger. "Carol told me they're keeping Thanksgiving small this year." What she didn't say was that they're cutting out half the family to do it. "It's fine," I reply automatically, the same tired phrase smoothed by years of use. "It is not fine," Grandma snaps. "I know what they did. It's been happening your whole life." I should have said something years ago. Her words hit me like a weight pressing against my chest, validation I never thought I'd hear. "I'm hosting instead," I tell her, surprised by the steadiness of my voice. "At the New Hampshire place. Everyone's invited. The house you bought last year, the one they never visited even after you invited them for Memorial Day. That's the one." There's a pause. Then her voice softens. "I'll be there with bells on, sweetheart. and I'll make sure everyone knows you're the one who saved Thanksgiving. After we hang up, my phone lights up with new messages. David is rallying the troops, cousins, aunts, uncles, all replying with enthusiasm. My executive assistant Olivia has already arranged transportation for elderly relatives who can't make the drive. Chef Michael has sent over a proposed menu that honors our family traditions while elevating them into something truly special. I pack the memories away, sealing the box with more care than it probably deserves. Tomorrow I'll drive to New Hampshire to prepare the house. The next day, the winding driveway to my estate is lined with ancient maples, their bare branches clawing gently at the gray November sky. The colonial revival mansion emerges around the final curve, white columns standing sentinel against weathered brick, its windows gleaming like watchful eyes. $6.2 million. The number had barely registered when I signed the papers last year. Just another transaction, another investment. I never imagined I'd actually live here. Alan, the caretaker, meets me at the front door. His weathered face creases into a smile. Good timing, Ms. Campbell. The weather service says we might get snow next week. I've checked the generator twice just to be safe. Thank you, Alan. We'll have about 30 guests for Thanksgiving. If he's surprised, he doesn't show it. I'll make sure everything's in order. When will you need the rooms prepared? I'll handle the guest rooms personally, I tell him. Later, I stand in the first guest bedroom smoothing fine cotton sheets across a 4-poster bed. For Grandma Margaret, the softest pillows I could find, and a small vase of dried lavender on the nightstand, her favorite. For Uncle Robert and Aunt Sarah, matching quilts commissioned from a Vermont artisan. For the children, baskets of toys and books chosen for each age. I unwrap a small package, 32 personalized place cards for the dining table, each one hand-calligraphed. My finger traces the raised ink of my own name, and I wonder where I would have been seated at my parents' table. Probably the far end if I'd been seated at all. Standing in the grand dining room beneath a 15-foot ceiling and before a wall of windows overlooking the pond, I imagine the space-alive voices overlapping laughter, rising the clatter of silverware against china. Then an unwelcome question surfaces. Am I doing this out of love or revenge? Both, probably. The thought should trouble me more than it does. I place my name card at the head of the table and step back, surveying the room. For a moment, I see it through my mother's eyes, the tasteful luxury, the understated wealth, the quiet perfection. Let them see what their second-best daughter has built. Let them wonder what else they missed while they were busy looking the other way. I glance at my phone for the 5th time in an hour. My mother's latest message glows accusingly on the screen. You're embarrassing the family with this spectacle. People are talking. The irony almost makes me laugh. After excluding me from their table without a second thought, now she worries about appearances. I set the phone down beside the hand-carved place cards I've been labeling for each guest. Alan appears in the doorway, his usually stoic face edged with concern. Miss Campbell, the weather service is reporting a storm front moving in this afternoon. How severe? I ask, continuing to adjust the place settings. Severe enough to keep an eye on. I've checked the generator twice, but with 30-some people here. He lets the rest hang in the air. I nod, already making a mental note to have extra blankets placed in every room. Thank you, Alan. Let's hope it passes us by. When he leaves, I open my social media app against my better judgment. Sarah's latest post appears at the top of my feed. So blessed to celebrate with true family this year, the ones who matter most. Real Thanksgiving. Family first. The comments overflow with heart emojis from her in-laws and neighborhood friends. None mention the 18 family members suddenly deemed unworthy of inclusion. My voicemail icon blinks with an unheard message. Father's voice fills my ear, the familiar condescending tone that always made me feel small. Brianna, your mother and I think you're being dramatic. If you wanted to host your own dinner, you could have discussed it with us instead of... I delete the message before he can finish. The same father who forgot to attend my college graduation doesn't get to lecture me on family communication. David calls minutes later, his voice tight. You should know they're calling everyone, trying to convince people not to come to your place, saying you're just showing off. God? Are people canceling? I ask, sudden dread clutching at my throat. The opposite. Everyone's more determined than ever. Grandma Margaret told Aunt Carol to pound sand. The mental image of my 82-year-old grandmother using those exact words brings the first genuine smile to my face in days. I wander into my home office, fingers trailing along the polished mahogany desk. 5 years ago, this space was a tiny corner in my studio apartment, barely enough room for a laptop and a cup of coffee. I worked 16-hour days building CyberCore's security protocol while everyone from venture capitalists to my own father told me I was wasting my time. The cybersecurity market is saturated, he'd said when I tried explaining my business model over Christmas dinner. You should get a real job before you end up bankrupt. He'd turned to Sarah, then proudly announcing her promotion to assistant manager at the department store, where she'd worked part-time for 3 months. I remember the night everything changed. 3 years into building the company, surviving on ramen and determination, my phone rang at 2 a.m. A major client system had detected an intrusion attempt that would have cost them millions. My protocol had caught what every other security layer had missed. Within a week, we had 4 new contracts. Within a year, acquisition offers. The day I signed the final papers selling CyberCore for $420 million, I called my parents. Mother answered, talked about Sarah's twins for 15 minutes, then said she needed to go before I could share my news. Now I stand in a home worth more than everything they own, combined, preparing to host the family they decided wasn't worth their time. The first flakes of snow begin to drift down as the earliest guests arrive. Cousin Rachel and her husband pull up in their sensible sedan, 3 children tumbling out with shrieks of delight at the sight of the grand estate. Is this a castle? 7-year-old Emma asks, eyes wide with wonder. Just a very big house, I tell her, kneeling to her level despite the formality of my designer dress. More cars appear along the winding drive as the snowfall thickens. Alan and his team help elderly relatives navigate the steps while Chef Michael directs his assistants in a quiet, precise ballet of final preparations. The house fills with voices, laughter, and the warm, savory scent of rosemary and sage. I'm arranging flowers in the entryway when a commotion near the door catches my attention. Grandma Margaret stands framed in the doorway, silver hair dusted with snowflakes, cheeks flushed with cold, and something like defiance shining in her eyes. Your mother thinks I'm in bed with a headache, she declares, handing her coat to Alan. But I'd rather be here with people who know what family truly means. She cups my face in her soft, papery hands. They've been doing this to you since you were little, you know. I should have spoken up sooner. The simple acknowledgement nearly undoes me. All these years, I'd thought no one had noticed. Within an hour, the house is overflowing with life. Children race through hallways that have never known such joyful noise. Cousins arrive bearing extra side dishes and last-minute decorations. David organizes a resting area for elderly relatives between conversations. In the kitchen, Chef Michael conducts his team like an orchestra, crafting a feast that feels both traditional and new. The cranberry chutney I perfected sits proudly among his elegant reinventions of family recipes. When I thank him for managing such a last-minute celebration, he smiles. Creating joy through food is why I left New York, he says simply. This is what matters. Outside, the snow intensifies, swirling into a full blizzard by late afternoon. The windows shudder under the wind as we gather at the long dining table, 32 chairs, everyone filled. No one excluded. No one forgotten. Uncle Robert stands to offer a toast when the lights flicker once, twice, then vanish completely, plunging the room into darkness. Generator will kick in, Alan calls out from somewhere beyond the glow of the fireplace, but seconds stretch into a full minute and the power doesn't return. Instead of panic, something unexpected happens. Someone begins to hum Amazing Grace. Another voice joins. Then another. Cell phone flashlights flicker on, illuminating the soft outlines of faces around the table. Grandma Margaret's trembling soprano rises above the rest, pure and steady despite her age. David and his teenage sons move quietly through the room, lighting candles from the emergency supply. In their dancing light, I see something I've spent my life searching for: genuine connection. Not the carefully curated family image my parents maintained, but something real, imperfect, and beautiful. When the generator finally sputters to life 20 minutes later, restoring light and heat, part of me wishes it hadn't. In that candlelit darkness, we found what had been missing at my parents' perfectly lit table. Alan appears at my side. Storms knocked out power across the county. Reports say your parents' neighborhood will be without electricity for at least 8 hours. Are they okay? The question comes automatically despite everything. Generator at their house is working from what I hear, he says. But I thought you should know they've got just the 7 of them in that big house, while we've got 32 people warm and fed. As I look around at the faces of those my parents deemed unworthy of their table, I realize something profound. They thought excluding me was taking something away. Instead, they gave me the final push I needed to create something better than what they offered. The lights illuminate my family chosen, and blood filling my home with more warmth than any generator could provide. The next day, my phone buzzes with notifications as I refill Grandma Margaret's coffee. Winter sunshine floods through the estate's eastern windows, casting long rectangles of light across the living room, where several relatives linger over breakfast pastries. The blizzard has passed, leaving behind a pristine white landscape that sparkles under the morning sun. Someone's popular today. Grandma Margaret says, her eyes twinkling over her mug. I glance at my phone, surprised to see dozens of social media alerts. At the top, a notification from my nephew Tyler. Brianna Campbell, look what an amazing Thanksgiving we had. When I open it, my breath catches. Tyler has posted a series of photos from yesterday, the magnificent feast spanning the length of my dining room table, candles glowing as family members raise glasses and toast, cousins laughing by the fireplace when the power went out. The estate looks magical, captured in the evening snow, with every window glowing with warmth against the darkness. Did you see what Tyler posted? Cousin Rachel asks, coming downstairs with her phone. It's going viral in our hometown circles. I scroll through more posts. Cousin David shared a video of everyone singing by the fireplace, voices blending in harmony while snow fell outside. Aunt Elaine uploaded a stunning shot of the dessert table with Chef Michael's apple cranberry tart taking center stage. In almost every photo, the joy is palpable, but I notice something else. You're barely in any of these, Rachel observes, looking over my shoulder. I nod. I didn't need to be. The gathering speaks for itself. My phone rings. Rachel's eyebrows lift as she glimpses the screen, Sarah's husband. She whispers before discreetly stepping away. Hello, Robert. I answer, moving toward the kitchen. Brianna. His voice sounds strained. I just wanted to say yesterday looked nice. It was... I reply simply. He clears his throat. I accidentally tagged your parents in a comment on Tyler's post. Sarah's pretty upset. Understanding dawns. I see. Your mom called this morning. 5 times. He pauses. People are asking questions. After we hang up, I glance at my social media feed and the situation becomes immediately clear. Robert's innocent comment looks amazing. Wish we could have been there. Had tagged my parents, inadvertently pulling them into view. Their friends, neighbors, and church acquaintances now all know about the other Thanksgiving, the one they weren't invited to. Within hours, the posts have spread beyond family circles. My parents' neighbors comment with thinly veiled surprise. Church members are asking pointed public questions. What makes it worse for them is the image no one can unsee. Someone has created a split-screen comparison on one side, my lively table overflowing with 32 laughing faces. On the other, my parents' half-empty dining room with just 7 Sarah's family alone. The contrast is devastating. Which gathering people are asking truly represents family? Your mother called me, Grandma Margaret says, stepping beside me at the window. She's quite upset. What did you tell her? Her smile carries decades of opinions finally freed. I told her it was the first time the family felt whole in years. My phone keeps buzzing with new notifications. Uncle Robert posts that it was the best Thanksgiving in memory. Cousins tag each other with gratitude. Chef Michael shares professional photos of the feast praising the gracious hostess who brought family back together. Then, under the original post, someone leaves a comment innocent but cutting. Why weren't Brianna's parents there? Seems strange they'd miss such an amazing family gathering. The question lingers in digital space unanswered. By noon, my parents begin calling. I let the phone ring 3 times before finally answering. How could you do this to us? My mother's voice quivers with anger, not remorse. Do what exactly? I keep my tone even watching snowflakes drift past the window. Throw some extravagant party just to make us look bad. You're just showing off your money. A year ago, her words might have pierced me. Now they simply pass through like wind against glass. I only set another table because you told me I wasn't invited to yours. You know that wasn't. She cuts off abruptly, as my father's voice murmurs in the background. Put him on speaker, I suggest. There's fumbling, then his voice comes through. Brianna, this has gotten out of hand. Maybe we should discuss this in person. We can discuss whatever you'd like, I say calmly. But first I want to clarify something. 2 months ago at Sarah's birthday dinner, I mentioned selling my company. No one asked a single question. No one even seemed to hear me. A heavy silence follows. I sold Cybercore for $420 million, Dad. But when I mentioned it, no one listened. I hear his sharp intake of breath, then stammering. I didn't realize. I know, I reply quietly. You never have. When the call ends, the silence in the room feels clean, no longer heavy, but earned. David appears with a fresh pot of coffee. Everything okay? I look around at the family still lingering in my home, those who stayed an extra day, who cleaned up without being asked, who treated both the house and me with genuine warmth. Actually, I say, feeling a lightness I haven't known in years. I think it finally is. For the first time in my life, I don't need my parents' table. I've built something better. The doorbell's unexpected chime cuts through my Sunday morning quiet. I glance at my phone. No texts, no calls announcing visitors. My stomach tightens as I approach the peephole. Mother and father stand in the hallway, mother clutching a worn leather photo album to her chest like a shield. I consider pretending I'm not home, but that's the old Brianna. The woman who sold her tech company for hundreds of millions doesn't hide anymore. I open the door and stand firmly in the threshold. This is a surprise. We were in the neighborhood. Father says, his voice unnaturally bright. Thought we'd stop by. Mother holds up the album. Found some old photos I thought you might like to see. The practiced casualness in their voices tells me this visit was planned, calculated. 3 days after they discovered the extent of my wealth through social media, they appear on my doorstep. The timing isn't subtle. I step back, allowing them entry. Come in. They enter my space cautiously, eyes widening at the floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing Boston Harbor. Mother runs her finger along my marble countertop while father examines the original Rothko on my dining room wall. Quite a place you have here, he says. I don't respond to the fishing comment. Instead, I gesture toward the living room. Would you like to sit down? They perch on my white sofa, suddenly looking small against the backdrop of my success. Mother opens the photo album on the coffee table. Remember this birthday you were turning 8. She points to a photo where little Sarah stands center frame blowing out candles on a cake, while I hover at the edge, my face half cropped from the image. I remember, I say quietly. That was the year you forgot to get me a cake for my birthday 3 months later. Grandma Margaret made cupcakes instead. Mother's smile falters. That's not... It is. I interrupt, my voice steady. I have the journal entries. I walk to my office and return with a storage box. The label reads simply, Evidence. I've been collecting it for years, not for this confrontation, but for my own sanity, to confirm I wasn't imagining the pattern. What's all this? Father asks, his forehead creasing. Documentation. I sit across from them and begin removing items methodically. My MIT acceptance letter. I place the crumpled paper on the table. You never came to the ceremony. Sarah's volleyball tournament was that weekend. Mother shifts uncomfortably. That was important to her career. My bank statements from college. I set down a folder. 3 jobs to cover tuition after you refused to co-sign my student loans. We couldn't afford to take on more debt then. Father protests. The same year you refinanced the house for Sarah's wedding. I keep my voice factual, not accusatory. The therapist I've been seeing for 4 years taught me that. Their eyes dart to each other. A silent conversation I've witnessed my entire life. The quick assessment of what story to tell, what excuse to offer. Brianna. Father leans forward, hands clasped. We should start fresh. The past is the past. We're family. Mother adds, reaching for my hand. I don't extend mine. Father clears his throat. Actually, we've been talking. We know you've done well for yourself now. His voice drops to what he probably thinks is a confidential tone. If you ever need any financial advice, I have a friend who specializes in high net worth individuals. There it is. The real reason for their visit. I have a team of financial advisors, but thank you. I fold my hands in my lap. I don't need your approval anymore, but I do require your respect. Mother's face flushes. We've always respected you. I pull out a small journal with a faded unicorn cover. August 12, 1998. Mom said my science fair project was showing off. Sarah got a new dress for looking pretty at picture day. I flip pages. November 30th, 2001. Dad laughed when I said I wanted to learn programming, said computers are for boys who can't play sports. The silence that follows feels weighted with 3 decades of small cruelties. My phone rings, startling all of us. Sarah's name flashes on the screen. The timing is so perfect it almost seems staged, though I know it isn't. It's your sister, I say, answering and putting it on speaker without warning. Hi, Sarah. I'm with Mom and Dad right now. A pause. Oh, they're there. Her voice sounds strange, hesitant. They brought photo albums. I keep my tone neutral. Brianna, Sarah says suddenly. I need to tell you something. I've been thinking since Thanksgiving. She takes an audible breath. I've always been jealous. You're smarter, braver, freer. Being the perfect daughter was just how I hid my fear of losing. Mother's gasp is sharp, her hand covering her mouth. What are you talking about? Father demands, leaning toward the phone. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Sarah says, her voice gaining strength. You've pitted us against each other our whole lives. I got attention for being compliant. Brianna got punishment for being exceptional. The doorbell rings again. This time I know who it is before opening the door. Grandma Margaret stands in the hallway, her silver hair swept into its usual neat bun, her eyes clear with purpose. I followed them, she says, without preamble, walking past me. She stops when she sees my parents on the sofa, the evidence box between them. Good. You're finally having this conversation. Mother, this isn't your concern, my mother starts. I've watched this happen for decades and I won't be silent anymore. Grandma's voice carries the quiet authority of someone who has chosen her moment carefully. Every time Brianna achieved something extraordinary, you found a way to diminish it. Every time she needed support, you were conspicuously absent. Consider, we gave both our daughters everything. Father protests, standing. No. 3 voices say in unison, mine, Grandma's, and Sarah's, over the phone. I watch as something finally breaks in my mother's carefully maintained facade. Her shoulders slump, and tears, not the manipulative ones I've seen before when she wanted something, but real tears, slide down her cheeks. I didn't realize, she whispers. I didn't see. It's not an apology, not yet, but it's the first crack in a wall that stood between us my entire life. I don't rush to comfort her. That girl is gone. Instead, I sit tall, surrounded by my chosen support system. Grandma physically presents Sarah, surprisingly allied from afar. Now you do, I say simply. So what happens next is your choice. The final section is the beginning of a new scene and will be presented separately below as it signals a transition in the story's timeline, suggesting a time jump to Christmas at the New Hampshire estate. Snow drifts against the windows of my New Hampshire estate, transforming the landscape into a winter wonderland. Christmas lights twinkle along the eaves, reflecting off the pristine white blanket covering the 40 acres. Inside, fires crackle in 3 different hearths, while the scent of pine and cinnamon fills the air. A month has passed since Thanksgiving. A month of cautious text messages, tentative phone calls, and one tearful coffee with my sister. Now I watch through the bay window as 2 cars pull into the circular drive. My parents emerge from one, their movements hesitant. Sarah's family spills from the other, her husband Tom, wrangling their 3 children as they dash toward the front door. My fingers tighten around my coffee mug. They're here. When the doorbell chimes, I open it myself rather than letting Alan handle it. My mother stands with a foil-covered dish, her eyes widening as she takes in the grand foyer with its soaring ceiling and magnificent spiral staircase. Welcome, I say, stepping back to let them in. The children barrel past, squealing at the 15-foot Christmas tree dominating the great room. We brought sweet potato casserole. Mom offers the dish like a peace offering. I take it with a smile that feels only slightly forced. Perfect. The kitchen's this way. Conversation starts awkwardly but gradually thaws as everyone settles in. The children's laughter echoes through rooms that once stood silent, filling uncomfortable pauses with their innocent joy. Later, I find myself alone in the kitchen with Mom unpacking serving dishes. Without a word, she rolls up her sleeves and begins arranging appetizers on platters, working beside me, not directing, not correcting. For the first time in years, we move in quiet harmony. Your home is beautiful, she says softly. I never really understood what you'd built for yourself. I glance up and meet her eyes. Thank you for coming. In the dining room, Chef Michael has surpassed himself. The long mahogany table glows beneath crystal chandeliers, every place setting meticulously personalized. No one sits at the head. The circular arrangement ensures everyone shares equal space. Dad hesitates before taking his seat, surveying the gathered faces around him. Before we eat, he says, clearing his throat. I'd like to say something. He raises his glass. To learning from our mistakes. Glasses lift amid murmured agreement. When I look up, Mom's hand rests gently on my shoulder, a touch so tentative it could vanish if acknowledged. After dinner, Sarah finds me by the Christmas tree, its lights casting shifting colors across our faces. Thank you, she whispers, for giving the kids their whole family. My phone buzzes with a message from David, proud of you for giving them a second chance. I smile, glancing around the room. Chef Michael is laughing with my uncles. Alan, no longer just the caretaker, but part of our circle, helps Grandma Margaret with her dessert plate. Even the staff I'd insisted join us rather than work alone on Christmas mingle easily among the relatives, laughter and conversation weaving the room together. When glasses rise for one final toast, Mom stands. Her voice trembles at first but grows steadier with each word. To new beginnings, and to our extraordinary daughter. Later, as snow drifts softly past the windows, I stand in the doorway and watch my now complete family. Children doze on laps. Adults share stories. Warm laughter ripples through the room, touching every corner. And in that moment, the truth settles in my heart like a glowing ember. Family isn't defined by blood alone. It's made of the people who choose to value you. Being excluded from their table once gave me the chance to build my own one where everyone belongs. Next Thanksgiving, I'll make it even larger. Because everyone deserves a place.